What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I am your girl Shay and you are watching Real Life Gardening. So we all know we all have to start from somewhere when it comes to gardening. So today this video is going to be all about terminology that you would hear out and about in the town, or going to the store, or asking people in the big box stores or your local feed and seed. You'll hear it on YouTube a lot if you're watching gardening videos, which I'm guessing that you are. And if you are just trying to learn and you're just now starting gardening, then this video is for you, because today we are going to be going through some terminology that you will be hearing when you are starting a garden. So as a gardener, first time, even just now starting first year as like myself, this is going to be my first full year of gardening. So I've come across a lot of videos talking to other gardeners in my neighborhood and other people in stores like Lowe's and Home Depot, your local feed and seed, and they would usually tell me certain things that I don't know. So in my case, I like to research things, write it down, and learn. So here today I have a list of notes here that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. That way if you want to learn what the terminology is, then you are free to write it down as well and keep it for safekeeping, so you know what is going on in your garden. So what is that? As you can see, as the title of the video is either going to be named that or what does this mean? Gardening wanted to know what those words are. Stay tuned. So the first word that you might hear while starting your garden is, I'm going to put it down below as well so you can read it and then just write it out. Press pause. I'm sorry. It will be down below right here on the screen with the terminology, what it means, and then you're free to pause the video and write it down. The first one is sowing seeds. So what exactly is sowing seeds? Sowing seeds is the planting of seeds, either to direct sow in your soil or in seed starting containers. I will have a picture here of what a seed starting setup would look like, or indoor greenhouse setup would look like. So you can either do it indoors, outdoors, directly in your garden, or you can even do it in a greenhouse with the seed starting trays as well. So that is the first terminology, that you would use, is sowing of seeds. Alright, so you wrote that down? Good. The next word that you might hear with gardening is transplants. So transplants are after you did the sowing of the seeds and they're reached a great size or length, or their true leaves are out. We'll get to that word as well. Then you are free to transplant it outdoors inside your garden if you are starting them indoors or in a greenhouse. So you would just take it out of the cell and then you would place it in your grow bags, in your raised beds, or in ground in your garden. So that is pretty much what transplant means. You move from one place to another, as well as up potting. You will hear that word as well. So up potting is when you have a small seed cell tray. You would take it out of that seed cell tray and put it in a larger one. So you might start with like a 3-inch cell. You would move it up to a 5-inch or 10-inch or a grow bag or raised bed. So that is what transplanting is. The next word that you might hear are seedlings. Seedlings are pretty much the plant after it has grown and sprouts and has their true leaves already visibly shown. So the seedlings you can buy from big box stores. You can buy them from your grocery stores. When it comes to herbs, you can buy the starts. You can buy the starts from those stores, and you can plant them inside your ground. So seedlings are plants that have their true leaves out and are ready to be planted, fruited, and harvested. And one that I am really still doing research on and learning more about are NPKs. You will hear that a lot when it comes to gardening. So NPKs is fertilizer. It can be water soluble or it can just be granular fertilizer. Water soluble, you mix it up in the water and then you free to grow. So you got your Alaska fertilizer, you got Miracle-Gro, and any other fertilizer. Comfrey tea, you got compost tea, and things of that. So that would be fertilizer. So it is 3 key ingredients that you will need for your seedlings to grow, to thrive, to make more plants, to make blooming. We'll get to that as well. So those are nitrogen for the N, phosphorus for the P, and K for potassium. And they all have numbers, so they tell you which one is strongest in which one. So you might have a 5 nitrogen, 10 potassium, a 10 for phosphorus. So you would need to know what your plants need so you can know which fertilizer would benefit the plant the most. So if your plants are yellowing, you may need some nitrogen so it can liven it up and get it to the dark green color that it needs to be. So NPK are fertilizers needed for your plants to survive and thrive, bloom, so you can harvest. Another word that you might hear, which is also on the back of the seed package, they let you know if the plant is an annual plant. So annual is when the plants, you just plant it that year and that's it. Once it's finished during that season, it's gonna die. You will have to buy more plants, seed more plants next year. So annual means planting a plant every year. So on a seed packet, it'll let you know if it is an annual, and then you just go about doing it just like that. If you need to buy more seeds that year, then you need to buy more seeds that year. But annual is when the plant lives and thrives during that year, during that season, and then it dies, and then you just replant again for the next year. Another one in the category of growth is biennials. So biennials, it is every 2 years. So the first year it may just produce leaves, and then the second year is when they will produce the fruit, the flowers, the buds, and things of that nature. So after every 2 years you would have to replant that plant again as well. So biennial is 2 years it takes to bloom and harvest. So it might be strawberries, it can be flowers. I think those are the main 2 things that are biennials for real. If I'm wrong, please let me know down in the comment box. But yeah, biennial means every 2 years. It takes 2 years for that plant to bloom, to fruit, and to thrive. I hope y'all writing this down. Another one that you might hear is perennials. Perennials are forever plants, okay? They might take years to die, but you know if they do die, they're gonna come back the next season, the next year. So pretty much things like asparagus. I think I only have asparagus on my head right now, but you guys that are known gardeners, please put a list down below of things that are perennials. I know there's a lot of flowers out there that dies and then they come back to life in the next season of the year. So yeah. But right now, I just have asparagus. So the next word that we have up is organic matter. Organic matter is anything pretty much organic. So you can have your compost. You can have things from living organisms like manure. You can have your chicken manure. You can have your horse manure. You can use cardboard. You can use paper. Your trash of only fruits and vegetables, your fresh fruits and vegetables that you've composted, you can put that in underneath before you plant. That helps as well. And it just pretty much improves the health of your soil. So it adds that nitrogen, it adds the phosphorus, it adds the calcium to your plants in a natural way. So if you want to be an organic gardener, that is a way for you to fertilize your garden. And if you want to be organic, which is what I want to do, that's pretty much all the things that you can use for an organic garden. And they also have organic fertilizers out there as well. So yeah. Another word that we have is mulching. So mulching is the organic matter to protect or hold moisture to a plant. So you can use wood chips, you can use grass clippings, you can use straw, hay, or wood shavings. So pretty much you can get these from the big box store. Cutting your grass, saving it, you can put that on top, and it pretty much just protects it from the heat, the cold, overwatering, drying out. So those things that you can use organic, and they're organic, to help protect your plants. We also have pollination. You will hear that a lot when it comes to things like cucumbers or tomatoes or flowers. So pretty much pollination is the crossing of pollen from a male plant to a female plant. You can also do hand pollination with tomatoes, and that pretty much is self-explanatory. You just use a little Q-tip or a brush or whatever with the male plant, and then you go to the female plant once it opens, and then just dust it in there or rub it in there so that the female can be able to reproduce, and then make the fruit that you are trying to get. So pollination is the process of which reproduction happens between a male plant and a female plant in order to get one plant. Pretty much you're getting one plant because the male just produced the flower and the pollen, and the female has the fruit with the flower and the pollen. And y'all know how reproduction works. I'm not going into details, but that is pretty much what pollination is. As well as with hand pollination, you would just do a little tap 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 tap, watch the pollen fall, and then you will see fruiting. Next up, we have dormants. You will hear dormants a lot, especially during the really hot seasons or the really cold seasons. So dormant is when a plant just simply does not want to grow. It's just stunted. It's not growing anymore. It is not producing, or it's slowly growing. So pretty much if it's too hot, they're not going to be doing anything because it's too hot. If it's too cold, they're not growing as much as they are because there's less sunlight or too much sunlight, and they just die off. But yeah, dormant is a time when the plant has naturally just stopped growing. Just itty bitty, just not growing anymore. So that is what dormant means. Next up, we have self-seeding. So self-seeding, usually people are calling it voluntary plants. So it's just when a plant drops a seed and then let nature takes its course with the elements of outside the environment, with the rain and snow and heat. So pretty much you don't have to do any work. Once the plant dies, the seeds will fall, or the birds will carry the seeds and drop it in the drop-ins, and it's just pretty much a way of germinating without needing help. Almost like it's like chaos gardening. Think of chaos gardening, which that is the term, which means you just take a whole bunch of seeds, you throw it out into the fields or your garden beds, grow bags, and then just wait and see what happens. So pretty much that is it. That is all with self-seeding / chaos gardening. We also have dampening off. This is pretty much in the beginning stages of seed starting your seeds from seeds to trying to make them transplants. So dampening off is a decaying of a young seedling. So say you plant your seed, you sat there and you waited for it to grow, it started sprouting out, and then you look back 2-3 days and it's just leaning over to the side, and then it just dies off. That is because there is a soil-borne disease in your soil. So it could be from too much moisture, not enough moisture, the type of soil that you're using. It can have fungus gnats in it, and pretty much it just kills your seedling at the roots. So it's not going to grow at all. It's going to flop over and no longer exist. So you would have to repot and start your seed all over again. So I would watch out with that, especially when it comes to overwatering. I wouldn't worry about underwatering, but overwatering is definitely the start of how dampening off would start. And sometimes you cannot bring that plant back to life. No matter how much you try, I've tried, you cannot bring it back to life. So just make sure you are aware of how you're watering your seedlings, or when you start in the garden to begin with. Now we have aeration. So this might help with the dampening off or prevent it altogether. So aeration is the method of just loosening the soil so air will be able to flow through freely, so it won't over water, and the water can just go seeping on down to where it belongs instead of just sitting down in one place. So one thing that I know will help with aeration would be vermiculite, I'll put it right here, or perlite, or a mixture of both in your potting, your seedling start mix, and then that way you'll know that it'll help with over watering your plants. So just make sure it's a nice even ratio of vermiculite, perlite to either your peat moss or your cocoa coir or your potting soil. So yeah, aeration method of allowing air to flow through your soil so you can prevent dampening off. You can use perlite, you can use vermiculite, you can use a mixture of both, and a nice quality soil. Okay, so you got your seeds, you started them, they're seedlings, they're ready for transplanting. Your transplants, they grow. While they're growing, they might just simply go to seed. They're not even going to show you any type of fruit, any type of vegetable, any type of herb. It's just going to turn into a flower, and it is going to go straight to seed. That is called bolting, and usually it would happen because it is too hot or too cold. So if it's in the middle, it might do what it needs to do, but other than that, it'll go straight to seed. So I would watch out for that. But then that is another way for you to gather and harvest seeds for your next batch of growing. So bolting is the process in which it just goes straight to seed. It doesn't even grow, it doesn't fruit, you can't harvest. You can harvest the seeds, but it's not going to give you any type of fruit. Next we have is compost. So compost, you can either do it in a bin, buy a composter, or just do it in your house. You can also do it in your house. There's plenty of machines that you can buy off of Amazon that compost. I'd rather just do it naturally in my ice cream bucket, on my kitchen counter, or outside in a storage bin with some hole drainage holes in it. So pretty much with compost, you need decaying organic matter, which is used to also condition the soil, almost like mulching, or fertilizer. So you can use food, which is your greens, which are fresh fruits and vegetables that you scrapped from your kitchen while cooking. Instead of putting it in the trash, you could put it in a bin and just wait for it to decay a little bit, and it will turn into a nice black quality soil you can use. You can use leaves. I know now it is the fall time, or it is winter. I'm gonna say winter. It's fall is done. It snowed. So you can use leaves. You can save those leaves up and wet them and keep wetting them and turning them until they turn into a nice soil. You can also use manure. So you can use your cow manure from Black Cow or other manures. You can find those on Amazon in your big box stores, or go to your local feed and seed, or if you have a farm, you can go to the farm. Or if you have chickens, you can get the chicken manure and put that in the compost as well. And you can also get chicken manure. I think that's pretty much, I don't know, don't quote me. As I said, I am a beginner. So you can just find somebody who has some chickens and ask them if you use their poop. But yeah, that is pretty much what compost is. It's just organic decaying matter that you can use to help condition and fertilize your soil for good quality plants. So we have amendments. Amendments is pretty much almost like, it's like compost. It's compost. You can use compost as amendments. You can use the perlite, the vermiculite, you can use the cardboard, the wood chips. All of those things are amendments. So those are things that are used organically to help condition and make your soil healthy. So after you pull out a plant, which I don't really recommend pulling out plants, I just cut them at the root soil level. But when you want to put in another plant, which is succession planting, then you would add those things beforehand, and then you would plant your plant. That way it will have a nice base to work with before even starting to bloom. So that way to help fertilize them and make them healthy and want to grow. So yeah, amendments are things that you are adding to your soil organically that can help condition and help the health of your soil. So we have germination. Germination is pretty much the beginning of the seed's growth. So once you plant them in your grow bags, you plant them in your raised beds, you plant them in your in-ground, you plant them in your greenhouse. Germination is pretty much when those leaves start popping up out the ground after you have planted the seeds. So when it's above seed soil level, that is when germination occurs. You can also do another method, which is the paper bag method. There's a lot of methods of how you can germinate seeds, but the paper towel method is when you would put those seeds on the paper towel, and then you would wet them and put them in a plastic baggie, and then you would just sit there and let it wait for germination. This way you can see if your seeds are viable before you even plant and waste that time trying to plant a seed that is not going to grow. That way with the paper towel method, you know it's guaranteed to grow because it's sprouted, and then you can grow them and then they sprout. So germination is the beginning of the growth of the seed when the leaves reach soil level. The next term we have up is companion planting. So just like me, just like you, we want a companion. We want somebody that we can grow with and learn with. So companion planting is pretty much just that. You would plant one plant with another plant, and that plant will help that plant grow as well, and it also helps protect it. So it may be a shade plant that's a little bit taller. It'll block too much sun from coming onto the plant or too much cold from coming onto the plant. So it pretty much helps each other grow and help protect the other plants. So one that I know of would be probably tomato and basil. You plant those together almost like you're making a pasta already in ground, but it makes the tomato taste very, very good. So yeah, I don't know why I said that like that. But yeah, it helps the plant, and it's not, since tomatoes are very heavy feeders, it won't harm the other plants. So things like onions, people say garlic, onions will help deter plants or insects away from the plants. So yeah, that is a way that companion planting works. So other two terms that you will hear when it comes to gardening is blood meal and bone meal. A lot of people put this in their garden before they put in their transplants. So it's pretty much another fertilizer. So as it says, bone meal is from bones, grounded up, dried up bones. No meat, no cartilage, just the bone. You can even do it in your house. You can dehydrate the bones and you can grind them up into a powder, and you have your own bone meal. But they have to be clean first. So boil them, let them dry, dehydrate them, grind them up, and then you have your own bone meal. So blood meal is pretty much the dried up blood, and it is another way for adding phosphorus into your soil. So yeah, it is bone meal and blood meal. So it helps fertilize your garden, and they're low in NPK. So keep that in mind when planting your garden. Just always have some bone meal and blood meal on deck. It's not gonna hurt, and most of the time you can buy them separately. And in other fertilizers, like the granular fertilizers, some will have blood meal and bone meal. So make sure you just read the back label of the bag to see what exactly is in the fertilizer that you are putting into your garden, because the numbers matter. The numbers matter. So the lowest, you have the 10-10-10, you have the 5-4-2, you have the 1-1-1. It just, everything, all fertilizers can help your garden, but you can over fertilize. So just make sure you read the back of the package container to see how much you actually need to put in your garden before putting it in, because they can burn off your plants. We don't want that. We worked hard. So yeah, just keep a mind out and a lookout for that when you buying these fertilized products, or just make your own. I mean, it came from your house, and this is what we want. We want healthy, successful plants that can grow, thrive, and harvest. So yeah, blood meal, bone meal. Keep that in mind. Next up we have deadheading, and this is pretty much more in flowers. So deadheading is just the removal tops of plants. That way you can allow for more growth to happen. So this can happen with herbs, this can happen with flowers. So you would just pinch the top off so that the other flowers, when it comes to flowers, if a flower is dead, you can just take it off, and then it allows for more reproduction for the other plants and more flowers to bloom. So, and then we have like the herbs. If you pinch the top off, it allows it to branch out more, so you can have more leaves to harvest for. So deadheading is the pinching removal of the tops of the plants or dying plant or dead plant. That way you can either harvest the seeds if it's seeds available for harvest, and it allows for more blooms and more leaves to reproduce. That way you will have a better harvest. Next up we have direct sowing. I should have said this earlier in the beginning of the video, but hey, not deadheading, sorry. Direct sowing is when you are putting the seed directly where you want it to grow outdoors. So if you want to put it in a grow bag, instead of doing it indoors, waiting the 6 weeks, if it's past the frost date or after the frost date, you can put it in the ground, straight directly in the ground, straight directly in your grow bag, straight directly in your planter. Wherever you want to put it, wherever you want it to grow, its permanent home. that is where you would direct seed the seed. So it's pretty much the same thing with seed starting, but you're doing it outdoors in its permanent space. So pretty much you would probably do that right after the last. So frost dates, those are somewhat important. I'm trying to say it's important, but it is somewhat important because nowadays how the whole global warming thing is happening, our weathers have changed. They've even changed the garden hardiness zones. I was a 8B, no, I was a 7B last year. This year I'm an 8B, so now I have to configure and find out which plants is good for my hardiness zone and soil and the weather. So pretty much you have your frost dates. So the first frost date is when it starts to get cold, and this is when you would start your cold hardy vegetables. So I think mine would be sometime in November, and then you would have to know what your last frost after your frost date. So for me, I think mine is in January, February, March, April. My last frost date is April. So that's when the spring starts. That's when you can put everything outside that needs to be transplanted and get them adjusted to the weather. That is when you are free to transplant into the space that you wanted to transfer into. My mouth is so dry, y'all. I'm sorry. But yeah, so the frost dates is the dates given when you should plant and what you should plant. That way you know that this is the time I need to plant. This is what I should plant because this is the temperature and the season that it will thrive the most in. So you don't want to plant broccoli in the wintertime. You don't want to, I mean in the summertime. You can, it'll grow. But you don't want to plant tomatoes in the wintertime. Like you want to plant leafy green vegetables in the fall, winter time. You want to plant your tomatoes, your peppers, and your potatoes in the springtime. So that's when those things thrive, and your flowers in the springtime. So yeah, that is what frost dates mean. And there's also a website. I'll have it on the screen or down below for when you can check out when what your hardiness zone is. As I said, I'm an 8B in Virginia. So you can figure out what your zone is, and then they'll tell you when your average frost date is and the last frost date. So just keep those in mind when it comes to planting and what to plant, because you don't want to plant too early. I've made that mistake. And you don't want to plant too late, because then you won't get any yields, or you'll get fewer yields than you would if you planted it at the right time. So timing is everything. We also have the term hardening off. So hardening off is when you have your seeds, they have grown to their true form or their true leaves, and they're ready to go out into the garden. So if you're growing them indoors in your greenhouse, you would want to get them acclimated to the temperatures, to the environment that they will be in. So usually people practice with that, with using fans to make them strong enough and get the winds and their hair flowing through the winds. But essentially you will put them outside for a certain amount of time, bring them back in, put them out for a little bit longer time, bring them back in, then longer, then bring them back in. And then when you feel like they're ready to get out of their little bird's nest and hop on out and live life, then you would just plant them in the ground and let them thrive. Just take care of them, water them, make sure they get ample amount of sunlight, fertilize, and then you're good to go. So hardening off is when you're acclimating your seedlings from indoors to outdoors. So you'll bring them outside for a little bit, don't keep them out too long, and bring them back in just so they can get adjusted to where they're going to be for the growing season. And lastly, I have the term succession planting. So succession planting is keeping the supply of the plants going. So you would start the plants, and then you would grow the plant, and then you would transplant it, and then weeks later, probably 2 weeks, probably 3 weeks, you'll plant some more seeds. That way you know you have supply coming, just in case one plant dies off. Then you have backup in the greenhouse. You know you got some in the garage just waiting to be planted. So succession planting is just keeping the supply going, supply and demand. If one dies, you can replace it with another plant. You want some more plants for more yield, you will plant another plant. But pretty much it's seeding, growing more seeds after you planted the plant for like 2 or 3 weeks in the garden. So yeah, that is succession planting. You guys, you reached the end of the video. Yay! I hope you learned a lot. I certainly have during my, I'll say 6 months of growing, because last year was when I started my garden. But this year I'm finna make, I'm finna do the thing, okay? I'm finna grow and on time and take care of them with fertilizer and mulch, and make sure I pollinate what needs to be pollinated, watch my germination, make sure I'm getting some pollinators in there, using the bone meal, using the blood meal, deadheading, direct seeding, all terms that I've explained in the video, so you beginner gardeners can grow, okay? Y'all learned something, I've learned something. This has been a great video. I do thank you guys for watching and taking the time out to click the video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Let me know what kind of videos you want to see next. If you want another terminology video, let me know. And pro gardeners or gardeners who've been growing for a long time, if you guys have terms that I haven't listed or said in the video, please feel free to put it down in the comment box, because I have notes and I need to take notes. I like to research, so if it's words that you know that come across a lot in the garden community, please just put them down below so we all can learn. We're all here to learn, grow, have great yields, harvest, and feed our family the most healthiest way that we can. So with that being said, I'm your girl Shay. You have been watching Real Life Gardening, and I think I will see you guys in my next video. So take care. Bye.